What is going on, my beautiful brothers and sisters, fellow radiators of love? My name is Jamal Pope, aka J Phoenix, and this is going to be your daily tarot and astrology reading for Monday, August 19th of 2024. The full moon in Aquarius. Definitely have a lot of good stuff to talk about today. It's a very important day. Definitely going to be a lot of intense energy out there. So let's go ahead and hop into this video. Hopefully you guys had a wonderful weekend. Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful start to your week. So let's go ahead and hop into it. Let's hop into the cards. Let's hop into the astrology to see how you can be better prepared to navigate these celestial energies. Start off with the cards, of course. King of Wands in reverse. I feel like it's like we want... I feel like we're wanting to kind of push the envelope more. Like we probably wish we had a little bit more power, and we're kind of wanting to push the envelope a little bit more than we actually can. Let me see what it's followed by. Three of Swords in reverse. So maybe we're trying to push the envelope on things that have already... I mean, the Three of Swords is not the easiest card to deal with. I'm not going to lie. It's considered the card of heartbreak. So it's like maybe we're pushing and pushing and pushing too hard in places where we know it's not really going to yield, I guess, the results, or not going to live up to our expectations, if you will. But we're like still trying to push in these different areas, and it's just not going to come to the fruition that we want it to be. You know, this King of Wands, it's normally very fired up, very passionate, and very action oriented, right? But with it being in reverse, there's some sort of its action oriented energy is stifled in some way. Probably a hang up with this Three of Swords energy. So how this could play out in your life, you know, maybe you're in a situation where you are trying to, you know, maybe create something in your life, maybe an opportunity or something like that. Or maybe you're fixated on something that, like I said, hasn't worked out. Maybe a past opportunity or a past relationship or something like that. Trying to just push the envelope when really this is not a time to be pushing so much. This is actually kind of a time of endurance, if anything, of resiliency. Now, astrologically, of course, we got a lot of stuff to talk about, y'all. So, of course, this moon's going to be in Aquarius throughout most of the day. It will shift into Pisces, too. We, of course, are having the Sun, Mercury still in their Cazimi in square to Uranus. So you will see come that full moon, which is going to be happening here at 27 degrees, of course, of Aquarius. This is happening around 2:38 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will see that full moon come to its apex, and of course, it is in square to Uranus. So, of course, anytime that you have a full moon, it's this massive release point. I've been seeing all these different articles online about how massive this full moon is going to be and stuff like that, larger than other full moons and stuff. And, you know, it's definitely going to be, like I said, it's whenever you get a full moon, not only is it a release point, but it's also looking in the mirror, especially emotionally, especially from a subconscious level with the moon, especially from a collective level, especially here in Aquarius, where we are having to definitely release a lot of hang-ups that we have as a collective when it comes to the way that we connect to each other, the way that we relate to each other, especially in these digital spheres, these internets. I think this is about, you know, we have to kind of get back to the original internet, you know, the original thing that connects all of us. Especially with Uranus here in square to the sun and the moon, and Uranus does rule computers, it does rule the internet because it is the ruler of Aquarius, and it's here in Taurus, right? And squaring these energies, this could definitely be massive shakeups. This could be very interesting weather kind of coming out of nowhere too, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see some very interesting weather or storms, or just in general. I've noticed that the last 2 days have been kind of stormy in general. Ever since the moon was finishing up in Capricorn and went into Aquarius, it's just been raining a lot here. At least here in Georgia, it's been raining a lot and stuff. So, you know, but of course the sun is still focused on, still focused on the Leo thing. Still focused on having the courage to be yourself, to express yourself, being brave, stepping up to the challenge. But also, like I said, there's a level of resiliency that we need to have here. especially considering the fact that we still do have this Venus here at 18 degrees, and we still have it in square to this Mars and Jupiter in Gemini, and it's still opposing this Saturn, even though it's coming off of the exact opposition. It's still very relevant. The fact that we have two T squares, one mutable and one fixed, at the same time, and like I said, there's no cardinal energy here, really. So the only cardinal energy that we have right now is what? We have the South Node and Juno and Libra, and we have Chiron and the North Node in Aries. We don't have any Cancer energy, and I guess we have Ceres and Capricorn. So when it comes to finding direction, it's a little bit tough right now. So people are either fixated or they feel the need to make some sort of rapid change just to make themselves feel better. We have to learn how to be a little bit more resilient in this time and to find the comfortability within all the discomfort, within the chaos, within the obvious changing nature of this reality. The way that we relate to each other is changing. The way that we relate to each other via the internet and these digital spheres is changing. The way that we communicate, the way that we express ourselves in these different forms and these different facets are changing forever. And it's something that we really have to be paying attention to right now. We're doing away with the old and bringing in the new. So you got to remember too, like by the time that the moon comes back around to Aquarius, Pluto will be in Capricorn. So, and then we won't see another Pluto. We won't see another moon in Aquarius with Pluto there until later in the year. So like November or so is when we'll see that happen again. And then guess what? Whenever the moon comes into Aquarius for the next 20 years, Pluto's gonna be with it. So we are this energy right now it can be pretty heavy. It can definitely feel very pressurized right now, which is why, like I said, we can't really focus on this. Three of Swords is in reverse, so we can't really focus on the woes of the past and what broke or what was torn apart in the past, the heartbreaks of the past. We can't really be overly concerned and focused on that. What we have to focus on is the now. And it is a little bit hard to kind of focus on the future because we don't really have a ton of direction right now. A lot of this energy is still very much so up in the air. So we're mostly mutable with all the Pisces energy, a lot of the Virgo energy, and a lot of the Gemini energy, right? And then we have some fixed energy, of course, but the sun's going to be coming into Virgo very soon. Mercury is going to be finishing up its retrograde soon-ish, right? And you just have Uranus at the end of Taurus, and the moon moves really fast. It's going to be out of Aquarius soon. So we are going to be moving into much more of a mutable world where things are going to be changing. We're going to have to learn how to adapt on the fly. We're going to have to learn how to pivot. And, it's going to, the people that, find success during this time are the people that have a little bit of resiliency. Hopefully this Mercury conjuncting the sun here in Leo taught you, because Mercury's about going back to the drawing board. Hopefully it is establishing a new mindset where you kind of have to think like a Leo. Like seriously, you have to think like a Leo. And that's, in many ways, like I said, you kind of have to just be like, you know what, I'm that bad bitch. I'm that boss, I'm going to come through and I shine bright and I'm going to do what I do. I show up and, I have fun. I laugh it off if something is kind of crazy and stuff. And that's just kind of what we have to do. You have to be a little bit more extroverted. Leo's extroverted, so you have to kind of engage that energy a little bit more. This full moon in Aquarius, we have to release a lot of the introvertedness, that we have harbored. I would say the toxic introvertedness. I mean, I'm naturally a little bit more on the introverted side. I'm an extroverted introvert, is the way I kind of describe myself, right? But you can be so introverted to where you're like, what is it called in Japan? The hikikomori. These people that are pretty much just shut-ins and they don't engage in society at all. They just live on the digital spheres. They don't leave their apartments at all. They just order in food and have it delivered, but they don't engage in society at all. They're completely shut in. That can be toxic. But you can also have the toxic extrovertedness where you're constantly involved in everyone else's affairs and you're not really even focused on even your personal relationships. So we gotta find that balance, right? But unfortunately, over the last 4 years, a lot of people, I'm gonna just be frank with it, are afraid to live. People are afraid of people, whether it's because of their beliefs, whether it's because they feel like they may not necessarily believe the same thing that the other person believes, whether it is because they feel like they may catch a disease from the other person, whether they just, there's a multitude of different reasons. And I understand that the last 4 years have been difficult for all of us. We've had to go through some major paradigm shifts mentally, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, physically, right? But we have to have some resilience. Humans have been through so much, and we have to have some resilience. And I think right now we kind of live in a time where we have made ourselves overly comfortable, especially in the Western world, to where the smallest inconvenience can become like a volcanic eruption in our life, and just completely f up our vibration. But you don't want that to happen, right? And that's another thing that Aquarius actually teaches is that we hear about the law of attraction all the time, but what precedes the law of attraction is the law of vibration, because you are what you attract. So if you focus on what you are, where you're vibrating, then that's how you attract the things into your life. So, and a lot of times people will be like, well, how do I attract like $1,000,000, or how do I attract whatever it is, or a relationship? How do I vibe at that if I don't already have it? It's like, well, that comes down to a whole mentality shift. There is a level of fake it till you make it, but you have to trust yourself. You have to believe in yourself, and that's why I'm saying you kind of have to engage a little bit of the Leo energy and just be it, shine. I do want to bring attention, of course, to the significance of this full moon and the fact that it's hitting some interesting charts here naturally. So the full moon is actually going to be conjunct Donald Trump's part of fortune. I think that's kind of interesting. This outer ring is Donald Trump. So you can see that full moon is at 20, his part of fortune is at 28 degrees of Aquarius, so it is actually hitting it. What's also interesting is that he has Mars at 26 degrees of Leo, which of course Mercury and the Sun are conjunct, and that's going to be involved too. So the Sun is going to be on his Mars, the Moon's going to be opposed to it, and of course Uranus is in square to his Mars. I do think that is pretty interesting, and I think it's interesting how, as far as the political leaders or the people that are kind of involved in this sort of political battle, all have a planet that's getting directly hit from this. We can look at Kamala Harris, right? So if I can see if I can bring her up, because she's getting hit too. Well, actually, no, let's bring up Joe Biden first, right? Let's do that first, because he's getting hit too. Let's see how should I do it. I'm gonna do it this way. We'll do properties, and then I'm going to go. Yeah, so we got him right here, right? So he's getting hit too. He has the Sun at 27 degrees of Scorpio, Venus at 28 degrees of Scorpio. So this full moon is actually in square to his Sun and his Venus right now, right? So he's getting hit in a pretty interesting way. Of course, the full moon in Aquarius is going to be in his third house of communication. So, and it's a full moon, so there's a release point. So we may get some sort of release in the news regarding Joe Biden when it comes to third house matters, communication, and probably even investigative journalism. And because this is an Aquarius third house, it does in many ways deal with other people and groups. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get some sort of outburst from Joe Biden. You know what I'm saying? Because honestly, this whole thing with the way that the DNC has kind of gone and everything, and over like the last like month that we've seen everything just shift over like the last month or two, how everything's just sort of shifted. I don't know if Biden was like aware of all this. It just seems so weird and fishy, but we'll see what happens. I don't know. My my guess is that he may actually like say something at the DNC that like they'll have to like cut the feed or something like that because he says something he's not supposed to say or whatever like that. And I don't know, maybe one of his medications is like coming off whatever like that, and he's starting to actually kind of like in his own way think a little bit clearer or whatever like that, and may say something that he shouldn't say or whatever like that. But who knows, like, right? But his sun and his Venus are getting hit now. We also, of course, need to look at Kamala Harris because she's getting hit too. So if we look at Kamala Harris, her chart's getting hit as well. Let me X out of that. Make sure you guys can see. So all right, cool. So what's interesting about Kamala Harris is that she also is a 27-degree sun. Hers is in Libra, so this full moon is actually enshrined to her sun, but she has Saturn at 28 degrees of Aquarius, where this full moon is going to be at. She also is a full moon baby because the moon was her moon was in Aries, so she's a full moon baby. Donald Trump is a full moon baby. He's an eclipse baby. And you have Joe Biden that also is a 27-degree Scorpio. He's kind of the one that's getting pushed out. So just pay attention. This is definitely political theater, and it's coming to a crescendo. And I think this is interesting because I did say that we were going to get 4 acts. Leo was Act 1. Virgo was Act 2, Libra was Act 3, and Scorpio is Act 4. That's going to conclude this 4-part movie that we're watching. And it does seem like Leo season, Act 1, is going to end with a bang because the DNC goes from, tomorrow until, like, pretty much the end of Leo season going into Virgo season. So there's no coincidences in astrology. There really aren't. If anything, like, if you don't believe in astrology and stuff like that, it is what it is. But the next 3 to 4 days, if you really kind of pay attention, and that's the thing, a lot of people don't want to pay attention. I get that. Moon in Aquarius, people want to just kind of like emotionally detach and shit like that. But it's going to be tough to emotionally detach when we have such big players and their charts are getting hit exactly. You know what I'm saying? So it's going to be hard to really see that. I also want to read to you guys the Sabian symbol that this full moon is happening at. A tree felled and sawed to ensure a supply of wood for the winter. This shows the need to take what's available in the environment and use it to your advantage. Trees sawed into logs to ensure a supply of wood for the winter implies the ability to be able to plan or think ahead. By seeing what you'll need for the future, you can work ahead of time to ensure there's a good supply. There are many things that grow around us during life. Sometimes there can be other uses that are of greater benefit than just let things stand like monuments or memories. You may need to sacrifice something old to find its current usefulness. You may need to sacrifice something old to find its current usefulness. Maybe Joe Biden. Gather resources when you can. Don't wait until supply might not be readily available. Gathering resources prepared for hard times, stockpiling, open fires, publishing books, renewable resources, the making of paper, printing money, fuel, gas, recycling. Kind of interesting stuff too. Especially with fuel and gas, printing of money. Destroying the old for modern advances, hoarding supplies and not sharing. Not planning ahead, fear there won't be enough, environmental destruction. That's kind of wild. I hope we don't see this, but maybe we see like an oil spill somewhere if it says environmental destruction. But because Uranus isn't square to this full moon, and it is in Taurus, and Taurus is like nature and stuff like that, We might see like an oil spill or something like that, or some sort of environmental disaster that does involve like gas and oil and stuff like that too. So just be on the lookout. I'm not saying that these things are going to happen. These are just predictions, just based off of the astrology. So they may happen, they may not happen. But I think the most important parts of this is it's showing the resilience of, like, if we just take this to the basic nature aspect, it's like, yeah, you cut down trees to get firewood and you prepare for the winter, because winter is hard times because there's less resources, there's less food, there's less light, the day is shorter, the night is longer. So you're preparing for those hard times. But the good times will come back, but you're preparing for the hard times. So we are kind of in that period right now where it's like times already do feel hard, but they are probably going to get harder before they get better. So we have to kind of prepare right now. That's why I'm saying, like, this is going to be a time where if you want to find success, you have to be resilient. You have to be brave, you have to be courageous. You can't just sit on the sidelines in your own life. Now, I'm not saying that you have to be like super main character energy like Donald Trump and just be involved in everything or whatever like that, or you have to be the most popular, most famous, or whatever like that. But just like in your own personal life, like, don't sit on the sidelines in your own personal life. That's really what it comes down to. We do need to prepare for what's happening, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I think the other part about this that is kind of interesting is you may need to sacrifice something old to find its usefulness. And it even says right here, destroying the old for modern advances. Yeah, it does feel like this DNC is going to be designed to kind of push Biden out. But like I said, he may have some sort of outburst, or he may say something where it's like maybe he doesn't go along with the play or the program or whatever like that, or the plan. And I don't know. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we see an outburst from Joe Biden, or it's just like a moment of lucidity from Joe Biden. Aquarius, I have even questioned this whole time if he actually is in the cognitive decline that he is. There are times where I wonder if, like, after like one of these gaffes or one of these interviews that he has where he's like tripping over his words, that he just goes and behind the cameras or not on camera and just talking perfectly fine with his wife and perfectly fine with his family, whatever like that. For all we know, his whole demeanor and condition, whatever like that, can be completely manufactured. I've thought about that. We don't know, though. I don't know if we will know. But like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if we get something where, like, a moment of lucidity from him, where it's almost sort of like he like kind of almost like wakes up from like the last month. And he's like, oh, what's going on? What's going on? Yeah, Mr. President. Yeah, so Kamala Harris is actually going to be, she's actually the front runner now for. So, well, I didn't drop out. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if something like that happens. But we'll see. In your own personal life, maybe look at those things, Three of Swords in reverse, that, have run their course, in a sense, and, find its usefulness, if you will. Maybe you use it for firewood, and then it does still serve a purpose, so we can look at it from that angle too. I do think it's going to be a very interesting full moon. I know this one's a little bit longer, but it's just because there's so much going on here, like multiple T-squares. We're having to adapt. We're having to address our values. We're having to address our relationships. We're having to address our communication styles. We're having to address how we really want to live. We're having to address what's in our heart. There's a lot of things that are coming up here. So I do have the four of bows, or the Four of Swords upright. It's like, yeah, he can see that this whole thing going on here, like this dude right here who's like freaking out, he can see all this that's going on and the craziness. And this, this card usually speaks to needing to take some time to rest and to recover. But in the context of this particular deck, it's sort of like, he's seeing something that's not there. Like the doctor on this side is like, there's nothing there, but he can clearly see it. So it's like there could be a level of delusion here where people may trick themselves into seeing something that is not there, or believing something that is not actually real or is not that hasn't manifested yet too. That's the other part too. Is like projecting our, you know, our fears into the future, thinking that it's going to manifest when it may not actually manifest, but then taking action based off of that supposition that something may happen. But then it's like you got to be careful about that sort of action that you take, because like I said, this is King of Wands in reverse. It may not necessarily lead to the best area, even if you're well intentioned, even if it aligns with your beliefs, even if you feel like it makes sense, or even if you feel like it may be you preparing for something. You don't want to necessarily take an action based off of something that hasn't happened yet. And even if you have reason to believe that it could happen, I think this is a time where we kind of have to hunker down a little bit, be resilient, and not just jump to conclusions, right? So you also don't want to necessarily, with the four bows here, you don't necessarily want to find yourself in a position where there is something there, and you have people telling you that it's not there. So you'd have to use like your discernment, I guess, as far as that goes. I'll get one more card for you guys. Well, I like that. We have the page. We have the Page of Wands. So it feels like we have to go back to basics. If the King of Wands is in reverse with the Page of Wands upright, yeah, maybe we have to kind of go back to the basics, of why we kind of are doing this in the first place. So this does bring some nice youthful energy to the reading and stuff too. But we still don't want to be too impulsive. And I think the thing about this is that, like with the King of Wands, that's someone, if he's impulsive, it affects a lot more people than if the Page of Wands is impulsive, right? So I think that's something we have to definitely consider. If an action that we're taking, how many people is it going to affect? Because this is Aquarius, right? How many people is this action going to ripple out and vibrate and affect other people? So it lets you kind of know that on the big scale with this King of Wands, that there may be some weird shit going on the big scale, but in like your personal life with the Page of Wands, it's talking about, it's like, hey, and he's like standing on all these bones and stuff like that, and he has the snake wrapped around him. He's a warrior, and he's gonna fight to live another day. I think that's the kind of the mentality that we have to have, that no matter what happens in the world, we fight, and we fight to live another day. And we'll see another day. The sun will come up, and no matter what challenges come, you wake up, you see the sunrise. It's another day. It's another opportunity to do the best that you can and fulfill your spiritual purpose. And that's all anybody can ask for. Say thank you. I love this card. Say thank you. Like, gratitude, having an attitude of gratitude is definitely going to help you during these weird, intense, and auspicious times, because it's very bewildering what's happening right now. But you can have fun through it. You can laugh through it. You can grow through it. And, we'll be all right. We will be all right. That's going to do it for your full moon in Aquarius video. I know it's a little bit longer than the usual, but I trust that this message will assist you on your journey today. If you found this video at all helpful, I would definitely appreciate it if you like this video, shared it with your family and friends, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. But y'all take care, stay blessed, have a wonderful full moon in Aquarius Monday, and I will see you all on the next tarot and astrology reading. Peace.